As business owners, we have basically two ways that we can make more money. One of them is to increase revenue, which hopefully we're always focusing on. The other is to increase profit margins, basically decreasing the cost it takes to create that revenue. While I am a bigger proponent of out-earning our expenses, with the umpteen subscriptions we can all find ourselves within, I do think it's worthwhile to see where we can streamline things to increase those profit margins. So I'm going to walk you through 12 subscriptions you might have right now that you can swap out for two things you might already be using: Google Workspace and ClickUp. So if you're not familiar, ClickUp is a project and task management system, and it starts at $0, which is really great. However, realistically, most people are going to need to do at least the $7 per month per user. This also includes free guests. So if you have a team, you can have your team in pieces of it without having to pay those extra $7 for extra users. The reason why the free plan doesn't work for very long is because of this storage limit. 100 megabytes of storage is like nothing at all. And so you're going to want to increase at least to that $7 really quickly. But at least to get you started, you could try the free plan. Now, do be aware that some of what I'm going to show you today is not available on the free plan. So just know that we are swapping out a lot of different subscriptions, but not necessarily for free. Google is primarily used, or most people know it, for things like email, Google Drive, Google Sheets, documents, that sort of thing. Right now, this is showing that there's a discount. I can't promise that that's going to be up by the time this video goes live. So just assume $7 per month per user. I would recommend you go a little bit higher. So again, you can get that storage space. It's going to be worth it. Now, before I go into everything that ClickUp and Google can do, there is a caveat. I'm not going to show you all the swaps possible, and they won't be perfect swaps. There's never going to be a perfect system out there that does everything perfectly the way we want to do it. So we need to go into it understanding that. I'm going to focus on the ones that you might not realize exist and that might be a suitable alternative depending on what you need. But you've got to investigate for yourself, and you got to see what's going to work for your business. So make sure you do the homework yourself to really see what's going to work in your business. Let's start off with the swaps that have the most cons, and then we'll move from there. So the first is website and web security. And for this, the swap is going to be Google Websites. The pros of Google Websites is it's a really user-friendly interface. It is suitable for really basic website creation. It's going to seamlessly integrate with any of your other Google services that you're using, and you're not paying additional hosting fees. It is part of that $7 or $14 a month subscription. The cons, however, is that you have limited customization. You've got limited functionality compared to platforms like WordPress or Squarespace or whatever else you're building on. And it's really probably not going to be ideal for e-commerce or if you need a complex website. So this makes it suitable for businesses really needing a simple online presence. They don't need advanced features, especially businesses like brick and mortar or local-based businesses, or if you are a one-on-one service provider. So you could be a bookkeeper, you could be a cafe, you could be a coach, you could be a contractor. If you have a simple business, a simple website will suffice. You don't have to spend all this money and all this time to get everything with bells and whistles that you're not going to be blowing and you're not going to be ringing anyway. I would not recommend this for websites that are going to require extensive customization, who they have a lot of offers like an e-commerce site, or if you're needing really advanced SEO tools, Google Sites can do that, but if you want more advanced stuff, you may find it more limited. The next swap is going to be services like lead pages for landing pages. And once again, we can use our Google Sites for that. So the pros, it's very cost effective. It's easy to integrate with things like Google Forms if you need lead capture. The cons, though, is that you are going to lack that advanced design and conversion optimization features that you're going to get in something like lead pages. You're also not going to have A/B testing capabilities, which can really limit your ability to optimize these pages. So who is this suitable for? Anybody who is doing a small campaign. If you have very simple lead magnets, if you have internal projects with minimal design requirements. But it's not going to be suitable for businesses that are heavily reliant on high converting landing pages with advanced features. So if you are running ads, if you are running webinars, if you are, doing any sort of complicated sales funnel, probably stick to the subscriptions you have for that. Next is going to be subscriptions like Timeform, Jotform, SurveyMonkey. And for this, you can either use ClickUp or Google. Both of them have this capability with different pros and cons. So the pros to these are going to be, they're very easy to use. ClickUp can actually turn responses into tasks, which makes your process in terms of things like maybe client onboarding very streamlined. You can get real-time response collection. You can have the same analysis details, especially if you're using something like Google Form. You can really get into the analytics. And another pro, again, it is one less subscription. The cons, you're going to have some limited design customization. There's a little less pizzazz. You may not have as much branding. It doesn't necessarily look as modern or as up-to-date as something like Typeform might look. Another con is you're not going to have logic branching. Logic branching is if somebody answers the form in this way, their next question goes this direction. If they answered in this way, it goes this direction. So it can really give people a different experience based on the answers as they go. And you don't really have that inside of ClickUp or Google. So what is it suitable for? It's going to be suitable for some basic surveys, some feedback forms, application processes, any sort of internal data collection. For instance, we have a form that we use to collect testimonials. So if we get a testimonial through DM, through email, our team can pop it into those forms and it'll turn it into a task. We can have an automation inside ClickUp that says when a task gets added, do these things. So add these subtasks, add these details. Then that gives us everything we need to process that testimonial and get it where it needs to be in our sales funnels. However, if you have complex surveys or complex forms, something that's going to require some advanced features, branding customization, you may not like this. However, I really think in most cases, the branding customization just does not matter as much as people think it does. Nobody cares if your form is branded. They just care that it works. Our next subscription that we might be able to ditch is Toggle or any sort of time tracking tool that you use. And for this is built right into ClickUp. So the pros of this is that it's actually attached to a task or a client project. So you could have a client onboarding form. They fill all of that out. It turns it into a task for the project, and the tracking for that project is within the same task. So everything is really streamlined, organized, set up for you. There's less that you need to do. The cons with this, though, is that you do get less detailed tracking. You're not going to be able to really break this down very well. It's not going to integrate into payroll or accounting softwares. Though you might be able to work around that with Zapier, it might just be clunky or it might not work at all. So if you're making a switch from something like Toggle to ClickUp, it's really probably going to be ideal for small teams, solopreneurs, or just basic tracking for clients, not for teams that need really detailed reporting. Next up is Trello. Trello allows you to organize content in a board view, kind of like a whiteboard or a pin board, something like that. For that, you can just use ClickUp as a board view instead of a list view. And the reason that I like this is because you might have different people on your team that have different organizational styles. Their brain works better as a list view and someone else's brain works better as a board view. Everybody can use the view that they prefer. So this is one of the reasons that I love ClickUp. It does so many things for so many people, and it can do something different for everybody on your team, but still stay streamlined and organized for the team as a whole. So there really are no cons to going from Trello to ClickUp, especially because ClickUp is going to scale with you, whereas Trello's not. Okay, next up, and this is one that I have definitely moved over to. It is not perfect, but it is one less subscription, and that is Calendly. I have started using Google Scheduler for this. Pros of this, it's integrated into your Google Calendar. So this is going to simplify the scheduling. You're not going to have to make sure that the integration's working or that Zapier's connecting things or that, any of that stuff. It's right there ready to go. There's no additional cost beyond what you're already paying for your Google Workspace subscription. The cons, however, it does lack some advanced features. For instance, it says that it has buffer times, but that is buffer times in between the appointments that it is booking. It will not, for whatever reason, at least at the time I'm recording this, put buffers between what it is booking and what is already on my calendar, perhaps from something else. Maybe I put a task on there, maybe I have a family appointment on there. It will not put a buffer time. So I know that on the days that I have my calendar open, I need to make sure anything that's on there, I've included my own buffer time so that Google will not back me right up into another appointment. Hopefully this is something that they are going to fix. The other con is that you don't have payment integration, at least at this time. You also don't have something like round robin booking if you have a team, and you don't have very much customization when it comes to the booking pages. That being said, if you have simple scheduling needs, you can set up as many appointment schedulers or times, unique calendars as you want to. There's no limitation inside of Google Scheduler like there would be for Calendly. All of this being said, this is not going to be suitable for bigger teams, for anybody needing any of the features that I just listed, unless you want to create some not so pretty workarounds, but it is suitable for individuals, for small teams who just have very straightforward scheduling needs. Next up, Slack. I'm ready to get rid of Slack. Okay, there are some pros and cons to this. I do not use Slack unless it is somebody else's Slack channel. For instance, I work with a marketing team and they have their own Slack channel, so I am in there with them. But in my business, we use ClickUp Chat. We use ClickUp DMs. You can also use Google Groups or Chat. That's not something I've used very much, but it is an option for you. The pros to this is that it centralizes the communication within your existing platforms. So you don't have all these tabs open, you're not clicking around, you're not getting distracted by other things. It's all in one place. And of course, it is one less subscription. The cons to this, the biggest challenge that I have found is team members losing conversations inside task threads or the ClickUp workspace. Basically not remembering where the conversation took place inside of ClickUp. However, they just revamped this so that it looks more like Slack and you can see all chat channels in one place unless the chat is happening inside of a task itself. We have to remember too that this drawback happens in Slack also. My marketing team in Slack, we are constantly losing things. We're constantly having to search for stuff and we're not always finding it. So really, I don't see a lot of cons to getting rid of that and just going to ClickUp completely. However, if you are an agency, you might prefer to have separate client conversations from team conversations. Maybe you have Slack channels for teams or groups or clients. That's totally okay. You can do the same thing in ClickUp, but perhaps you do want to separate that out so that you are in work mode, working on the business in one place, working in the business in another. So who is this suitable for? Who is this not suitable for? I would say teams that are just seeking some basic communication tools. They want to integrate it into their existing workflows. They don't want a lot of subscriptions. Definitely suitable for. Not suitable for maybe would be bigger organizations or especially agencies who are working with clients. Next up, Zoom. We can just get rid of Zoom, potentially. It's not for everybody, but you can potentially replace this with Google Meet. And I'm actually surprised how few people use Google Meet, considering the fact that most people are paying for it anyway. The pros of this is that it could be integrated into that Google Calendar. So somebody books an appointment and it creates a Google Link Meet in that calendar event. You can set up your notifications right within it. It's also easier for most attendees because they don't need a Zoom plugin. There's no updates that they have to wait for. That time like you're late for a meeting and that's when Zoom decides it wants to auto update on you. None of that is going to happen. The pros, however, you are going to be limited to 500 attendees or less, depending on your workspace pricing plan. You're also, and this might be kind of a vanity thing, but I think that the video on Zoom looks better than the video on Google Meet. I'm using the same calendar, but Zoom has kind of a beauty filter that just sort of softens the camera and makes everybody just look a little fresher and nicer, and I certainly appreciate that. It's not necessarily a bad thing or a big deal, But it is just one of those things that makes Zoom kind of nice when you're doing things and you maybe don't want to have to worry about the lighting or, whatever camera situation you have. And then when we are using Meet versus Zoom, you don't really have the webinar features. So that can definitely be a limitation. So who is this suitable for? It's going to be suitable for just standard video meetings. You're just meeting one-on-one with somebody. Maybe this is with a team. Maybe this is with clients. You don't need to be paying this separate fee for Zoom when you're just having basic meetings through video. It's not going to be suitable for anybody who is doing webinar meetings, who is doing larger participants, who needs larger participant capacities. That's where you're probably going to be more limited and you may want something like Zoom. Next up, we have Dropbox. We can definitely get rid of this one. You can use ClickUp, but you're probably going to want to use Google Drive for this. The pros, you're going to keep it all in one place. If it's in ClickUp, it can be attached to the task that it's associated with. It's very easy to share both with people outside of your ClickUp or your Google. Definitely easier when it comes to Google. And again, no extra subscription. The cons, however, you've got potential limitations in file sharing and in collaboration features compared to dedicated storage solutions, specifically when you're using ClickUp. I don't think this is really the case when you're using Google Drive. I think it's very easy to do file sharing and collaboration. Everybody knows and understands how to use Google Drive. When it comes to ClickUp specifically, it's really not an organized storage system. So it's more helpful when you just need to attach things to tasks, files to tasks, but not necessarily to find them later on down the road. So Google Storage versus Dropbox. It's going to be suitable for teams who are already utilizing Google Workspace or ClickUp for other functions, but potentially not for people who, I don't know, don't like to pay less. I really can't see a reason why anybody pays for Dropbox when they have Google Workspace. They're basically the same thing. Next up, ChatGPT. This one's very exciting. Both Google Workspace and ClickUp have the same functionalities. Google Workspace has Gemini. ClickUp now integrates with ChatGPT directly, but for free. So pros, you are integrated into the systems you already have. Again, one less subscription. Cons, I think Gemini is generally considered better for creative tasks or images, whereas ChatGPT I think is better for text-based content. But again, ClickUp is using ChatGPT 4.0 and all the other models and is keeping up with all of them. So it is literally the same exact thing, just inside of ClickUp. I use ChatGPT. I'm still paying for it even though I have ClickUp. Why? Because I have so perfectly trained it and I don't want to start that process over. So that could be a a con, is the idea of if you already have it really well trained, starting that process over can kind of be a drag. However, you probably know how to train it a lot faster and better now, and so maybe it's going to be worth it. Maybe you can just spend a day sitting down, getting it up to speed with your business, your voice, your messaging, your brand, your clients, all of that. Definitely test them out and see for yourself. Next up, subscriptions like Fathom, which is a note taker for things like Zoom or Google Meet. And for this, we have Google Meet Note Taker. This is going to automatically transcribe meetings that are held in Google Meet, so that's definitely a pro. It's also going to integrate with your workspace, so it's going to be very easy to access and to share with people. And it automatically gets saved in your Google Drive, so you have one less place you need to go to try to find files or notes. Now the cons. This is not going to take notes for meetings held on other platforms. So if you are doing a meeting on Zoom, you're out of luck. That is going to be a big drawback if you are meeting with people, outside of your team, outside of your organization. Somebody set that meeting up through Zoom and you need to take notes. Oh well. Also, the accuracy can vary a little more depending on auto quality and participant accents. So that may be something that matters to you. That may be something that doesn't affect you at all. So I would say this is really going to be suitable for teams that are primarily using Google Meet for their meetings. and it's not necessarily going to be suitable for people who are meeting with people outside of Google Meet, essentially. The other thing I do want to mention with this is that the notes and the video from this is being stored in your Google account, which means you could be eating up that storage space that you're paying for and need to bump up to a bigger tier sooner rather than later. So keep that in mind. It will probably still be cheaper to pay a higher tier at Google than to pay for 2 subscriptions, but it is something to consider. And then next up, we have subscriptions like Loom, or I have always used video or Vimeo Record because I already use Vimeo for something else. If you are doing any sort of video replies to clients or video feedback for team, this is a really great option. You can either use ClickUp Videos or Google Vids. The pros to this is that ClickUp will screen record with inside of ClickUp and outside of it, and you can share those anywhere. There's no limit to how many you can have on your account either because you have unlimited storage in ClickUp. The cons to ClickUp Videos is that you're going to be more limited on branding, privacy, share settings, and there's no webcam inside of the ClickUp Videos itself. You also don't have any viewer analytics or engagement, that sort of thing. Google Vids is not often used as a Loom alternative, but it is a great one for it. You can record a webcam, your face on the video. You can also do a lot more editing with it because Google Vids is not just meant to do these sorts of, quick replies and things like that. You also have more customization. You can really go gung-ho on this if you want to. You've got sharing controls. You've got viewing and playback options such as generating closed captions, and you do have the security. But like I was saying with a Fathom alternative, you're going to use up your Google storage space, so just be aware of that. So in terms of who this is best for, I think when it comes to internal SOPs, team how-tos, feedback, anything like that on projects, especially where your face is not needed and you're really communicating mostly with your team, use the ClickUp Videos. It's not going to take any extra storage from you. Everything's going to be housed inside of ClickUp so you can add it to a task or an SOP and keep it nice and organized. When you're doing something like client videos, you may want to do Google Vids instead. As I was saying before, these are not all of the swaps you can make just with ClickUp and Google, and they won't be perfect swaps. But if you want a streamlined business or you're trying to grow this thing on a shoestring budget, it is definitely worth testing these things out to see if you can get rid of some of those other subscriptions. I myself use ClickUp and Google every single day in my business. I call it my second brain. And inside my Breakthrough Boss program, I actually show people how I set up my second brain, how I organize everything with templates, with systems, with everything you need to do to set it up for yourself. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check out that program. I would love to hear from you in the comments which of these swaps you can see yourself making, or if you have any other great suggestions for people, leave those down below as well. I would love to hear which of these swaps you would consider, as well as any other swaps you're aware of when it comes to ClickUp and Google. What else can it do to help business owners save money and streamline their systems? Fist bump in the comments for making it to the end, and remember, you got this.